Hey everybody, it's Liquid Lunch. It's me, Hugh, from downtown Toronto, and we got a great little interview planned here. We've got, and I'm here with, of course, Ian Graham, but also live from the UK, we got Michelle Daly, who is a partner with a fab company based in the UK called Umami Food by Design, as well, followed by the food and drink companies and retailers across the UK. Michelle and Umami are passionate about food and drink, and we've also got Jeff Kearney here, who is experienced business strategy specialist with the demonstrated history of results within the food service and health channel. And so we're going to just get started because, of course, we're all in the middle of this pandemic. And Michelle, how are things in the UK? What's happening with?
Yes.
Well, I'd suggest that life has changed dramatically, probably for all of us, but nothing is the same as it was even just 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Life has just changed. And, you know, the Brits, we've had 3 years of Brexit, and Brexit is not done. You know, 3 years of what happens and trade negotiations and constant changes in politicians. And so we've gone through all of that, and then we've hit coronavirus. And actually what that has done is it's almost made the whole nation kind of stop and change perspective, because I think it's fair to say that, you know, a month, 2 months ago, we were quite a divided nation still. You know, 52% wanted one thing, 48% wanted the other. And that division has been quite bitter and uncomfortable. And now coronavirus has come along and it's changed perspective. And I'd suggest it's pulling people together. We are maybe appreciating what we have, our health, where our people, so our key workers, the NHS, the teachers. Suddenly parents like me are thinking, oh my God, you know, teachers are amazing people, really. And so it's kind of brought everyone back together with a focus to, we've got to get through this. And that seems to be a very British trait, kind of not so much panic, although there has been some panic in terms of buying food, but more about, we've got to crack on. What do we need to do next? So that's where we're at.
What about, Jeff? Could you maybe explain what's happening in Canada over on the other side of the pond?
I think, you know what, and, you know, to Michelle's point, I believe, you know, I think we were slow. I think we're slow adapters to get off our proverbial butts in the sense of trying to get a rallying point now. But over the past week, I would say that, you know, we are, you know, I see it in the food service community. I see some things happening within the food service and even the retail community where there are rallying points. You know, I can talk to you about the broadliner community, that they're actually helping out the retail community in the sense of literally going and bringing their workers in to their distribution centers, because the broadline community in Canada, I mean, they've lost about 80 to 90% of their sales. So they're literally chipping in and trying to help out there. So we are seeing some real effects, I think, now. I think we're Canadians, we do kind of sit on the fence a little bit. We wait for our government to help us out before we rally. But I do see some real rallying points that are happening. I see some rallying points that are happening with independents, and I see some different things happening. There's something called Foodservice United. Sorry, I've got my son, this COVID thing, I've got my son at home. He's like, your phone's ringing, Dad. We do have an awful lot of different rallying points, especially with the independents. They're trying to pivot and do different things. They're trying to do off license. They're trying to create meal kits. I am seeing much more of a united front finally. You know, and I know Michelle.
I would agree. Yeah.
You know, I know Michelle. You and I have had a conversation even last week where I didn't see that happening within Canada. We're really kind of slow to react. But now that I am seeing it, and it's good to see that Canadians are finally jumping and really trying to, you know, help the community out, I think, more than anything.
What are some of the campaigns that are standing out for you, Michelle, that you have noticed that seems to be doing quite successfully?
I think it's about the resilience of businesses. And
yes,
you know, we've just had a home shopping delivery, and the way the retailers are really stepping up and improving their service and making stuff happen has been remarkable. But for me, there's people such as, there's a small brewery, well, a big brewery, but a small brewery called Brewdog, and they've actually diverted their manufacturing. Now they're making hand sanitizer.
Brilliant.
So I think that, it's how brands behave right now that will impact how people consider them and how people remember them.
That's right.
After. I really hope that people like Brewdog become, go to the heart of the nation for the efforts that they're doing. You've also got a company like Leon. So Leon is a fast casual food operator. And, literally stores closed overnight, but then they've rallied and they're doing 50% off, practically operating at less than cost for the NHS workers who are still going to work. So whilst people like myself, I'd love a Leon lunch right now, not possible, but they're opening for these NHS workers. And so again, they're doing something different. Their hashtag is #FeedBritain. So again, it's that rallying mentality and real positive action and the commitment for them to donate their profits to charity. So they're playing the long game. And, I'm sure there are other brands out there who are doing this for short-term gain, but I really think there's certain brands who will, come out of this, with glory. I hope so.
Michelle,
sorry. No, go ahead, Jeff.
No, Michelle, I think the brands that come out and that are authentic and are really trying to help their local, whether it be their local community or whether it be, like the QSR operators that are trying to help out, globally, like Starbucks is trying to do right now. I think those brands will always be remembered for helping out during the COVID crisis. And they will have great brand equity as things move forward. And I'm seeing such a movement towards authenticity right now in the sense of what people are really like. They're really appreciating what people are doing within the community, whether it be local or globally. And I think those brands will always be remembered, to your point, just to echo your comment.
Hope so.
Is there any negatives out there? I know that in Toronto, especially, Jeff, that there was price gouging going on. And it was frowned upon. Maybe you could just tell the audience in the UK what happened there.
Well, there were some, there was definitely some price. Initially it was price gouging with hand sanitizer, and we're all aware of that when that first went viral. That went viral it was in Vancouver, and there was someone hoarding hand sanitizer and then selling it. There were some price gouges that happened with some retailers within Toronto. And you know what? I mean, social media got a hold of it and it went viral, and not such a good thing. I have heard, and because I'm quite tight in the retail community, that a lot of, some, not all, but some are trying to pull back their spend in retail because they don't feel that they need to be spending on deal at this stage of the game, which I think is the wrong thing to do for a brand at this stage of the game, right? If that's going to be perceived as price gouging, right? And I know the retailers will do a good job in the sense of saying no at this stage of the game, because they do want people to get products at a fair price. So to your point, Ian, yes, it has happened. It's unfortunate. And I think with social media and with the retail community that we do have, I don't think that's can get. I really don't believe that can happen for too much longer.
Michelle, there was a problem over in the UK, wasn't there? I think with one of the major pub brands.
Do you want me to name them?
Yeah, please. It doesn't matter.
I don't want to name a brand.
Weatherspoons. You're talking about Weatherspoons.
Do you know what? They're never going to hire me. And actually,
no.
Based on the way they've behaved, I wouldn't want to be hired. Let's put that right out there, because I think our brand values are incredibly important. And so JD Weatherspoons are one of the largest high street operators in the UK. They are known for, a cheap meal and a pint, and they have their place in the market. They definitely do. But I was contacted by The Grocer, which is our leading trade magazine, to see whether I'd heard anything about the Weatherspoons' payment terms to suppliers. Well, I stayed away from that conversation, but very quickly it came out. A letter was published to say that actually they decided not to pay any of their suppliers their outstanding invoices. Now, we appreciate that these are difficult times. Everybody gets that, but this was just a blanket. We're not paying any more invoices, and these are these operators, this operator in particular, drives such hard pricing for their food manufacturers that they're pretty impossible to deal with anyway. So when you say you're making very, very low single-digit margin and actually probably propping up your whole volume through your factory on one operator, and then they decide not to pay you, that will hurt.
Of course.
So that has not gone down well in the industry. Now, they quickly, probably about 3 or 4 days later, came back and said they would pay outstanding invoices, but no new ones. So there's a bit of grey area. So they did actually listen, which is quite unusual. The chief exec of Wetherspoons is quite an opinionated individual. I think it's fair to say.
You're very brave.
It was interviewed a lot. So, talking about that, Jeff, can you provide a projection of the impact over the next 4 to 6 months? And I'll ask that to Michelle as well. What are your thoughts?
It's you know what? I really wanted to keep this positive, but you know what? I mean, most of my clients in food service have lost 90% of their sales. I mean, and that's it. The current year-to-date sales loss for North America is $375 million. That's on an industry that's an $899 million industry. They're projecting, as COVID continues, and this is not a fluid figure. This is just a projection over the next 6 months. It's a $675 million loss for food service currently today. So, we have to rally. We have to help out where we can. To your point earlier, Michelle, I know that that some of the broadliners have asked for people to extend credit terms right now because they can't afford to pay. They're not getting any money from the restaurateurs, and that's kind of fair, I think. But they are asking for extended credit terms. They're trying to do what they can. But to your point, Ian, there's going to be a tremendous fallout. They've predicted 3 million job losses right now, and with the potential of 7
Canada,
million. Yeah. No, that's North America. I'm talking North America.
North America. Sorry.
I'm talking North America. I want to talk globally on that. That's really where we're at. So it's not a pleasant thing, but I do want to keep it positive. There are some great rally points out there.
Michelle, what about yourself? What's your? I mean, I know it's been hit very hard in the UK. Maybe you could explain as well.
So just to give you some context, the hospitality sector employs about 3.2 million people. And is valued at about 81 billion a year.
Pounds.
The food wholesale sector is about 10.9 billion a year. So when you start to look at those figures of over 3 million employees in hospitality, the impact is huge. And if you switch so in the UK, we have the furlough scheme. It's got a proper title, but let's call it the furlough scheme, where the government is supporting employers to retain staff and will cover 80% of their salary for that period of time. So they're estimating that around 9 million people in the UK will be on furlough in the next few months.
Please tell everybody what is furlough.
So furlough means that, so if I were a restaurant operator and I can't open, then I can either make my staff redundant. If they're casual staff and on 0 hours contracts, which we still have in the UK, then I could let them go. Or if they're fully employed, I could ask them to retain as an employee. I could retain them as an employee, and the government will cover 80% of their salary up to £2,500. And then as the employer, it's my choice to either top that up or to, just to keep them at 80%, which I will claim back through government funding.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. They're doing that here as well. It's 75% in Canada. It's 2/3 in the States. So they are doing the same type of furlough system for the employees. I just see most of my customers are just laying people off at this stage of the game because they just can't, and they're relying on the government to get them to that 75% level. But the max in Canada, I believe, is $2,000 a month.
Yes.
And I don't see what it is. I'm sorry. And the figures I quoted were in billions, and I quoted millions. So I apologize for that. So that was My apologies, but that's billions of dollars.
I do think the UK have, social economics wise, I think they're further ahead from what I've gathered. In the United States, it's going to be dismal because every state will be very, very different. I think in Europe, Michelle, and you'll be better, you'll probably have better knowledge than I would, but in Europe, they're also pretty aggressive in looking after their people, especially in this industry. Have you noticed that?
That's what I'm hearing. In fact, it's quite interesting. The news now is literally just, I read the BBC, The Guardian, those sorts of things, and it's literally just UK right now. I think because of Brexit, we are almost keeping what's happening in Europe a little bit at distance. But I think with a new government, and I'm not on a political mission here, but the fact is we have a new government, and then they're in a crisis situation. The legacy they want to have is that they looked after the people. Now, it's not always as straightforward. There's a £330 billion pledge to support businesses. There's talk of interest-free loans. There is a 12-month, and this is really important for the hospitality sector, there's a 12-month business rates holiday for high street operators. That's really important for hospitality and for our struggling high streets as well. So there's lots of different things. They're not always as straightforward as they could be, but let's be honest, we've hit this probably without a plan, because nobody could have predicted that the world would have changed so quickly, so far. So I think there are redundancies, absolutely. The government are trying to protect the casual workers as well, but the feeling is positive in at the moment. That's the feeling.
I wonder if that's because I'm not sure I'm feeling the same level of positivity here in Canada, but I'm curious from both of you, Jeff and Michelle, is there, everybody's learning from this experience, but from your perspectives in the food industry, is there anything that you would suggest if we were to go through this situation again? Any kind of policy changes that you might want to suggest to the government if we ever have to go through a similar thing again?
Wow, that's an excellent question. We're going to learn through this. There's going to be new protocols that are going to have to be put in place, right? I think from the perspective of restaurateurs, I think it's going to be a new, it's going to have to be after this is over, there's going to have to be a new age, right? In the sense of restaurants with safe distancing, bars with safe distancing. And if we are going to do this again, and it does happen again, I think the world has to keep turning and not go into the state that we have. And I think we will put in protocols in place, globally, whether it be, for going into work or going into a restaurant, that will have new protocols right across the board. And it'll be safe distancing. It might be masks. It might be shields. I don't know what that looks like, but, we as business people have to keep, the economy churning. And I don't think we can afford to go through something like this again. So there will be policy changes.
I don't think I can add much to that. I don't think I've had even chance to consider how it could be done differently, because it's moved so fast.
What about
no one has the answer as to how long it's going to last. I know we can look at China, but I've got to be honest, from a selfish point of view, when am I going to be able to go out and get someone to cook dinner for me? That's what nobody knows, and we don't know. To Jeff's point, what will that look like? Will restaurants open as normal? Will they be 50% capacity?
That's what I'm hearing.
I am a positive person. I am positive. I'll find the positive in nearly everything. But right now, we've got some of our brands that are closing, that are on the edge. We've got high street retailers going. I do believe from massive change, new will come. I think fast casual dining will become faster, and there'll be operators. I think high street rents will change massively, because they've just been blown out of proportion. You look at London, it's probably the same in your key cities. The high street rents are they've been a bidding game. That's got to change. And what that will bring, hopefully, is some fresh operators, the new forward-thinking brands to the high street and to our stores with something different. And I think that will be one of the big changes for us.
And I think there's going to be a big push for local. Do you know what I mean? That's what I really think is going to happen. I think there's going to be, from a food supply chain point of view, I think it's got to change. And I think this is just me speaking anecdotally, but I think you're going to be looking for, fresher, better for you ingredients that are going to be local, whether it be chicken, whether it be, in season things like lettuce, carrots, all that other type of stuff. I think you're going to see a huge push towards that. And to your point, Michelle, that I think there's going to be a huge resurgence after this with independents that are going to be better for you brands that are going to get out there. Like QSR will change, fast casual will change, because people are going to be looking at their health a lot more than they ever have, right? Because of what's happened with COVID. Then again, I'm a health nut, so you know what? That's my belief, right?
No, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, Michelle, one of the things we haven't really talked about, the impact of the hotel industry. I mean, what is going on there?
Well, I mean, there's all these amazing hotels with no one staying in them right now. I mean, I live right by one. It has a wonderful golf course for me to walk my dog on, but that's not their business objective. It's a Marriott hotel. It's a country club.
Yes.
Again, the UK, we are blessed, and we possibly never really appreciate it until we really need it. And that's probably the same of many things in life. But we have the NHS. And the NHS has struggled. It struggles. But right now, those people are heroes. Every week, people stand at their door at 8 p.m. on Thursday and clap the NHS.
They're doing that here. The NHS, by the way, just to let people know, is the National Health Service. It's like Canadian Medicare, just to let everyone know. Sorry, Michelle.
No, you're right to stop me. So again, we just take it for granted. Everyone should know, right? But the NHS, so what the hotels are doing is they're opening up their hotel bedrooms for key workers, for NHS staff. So there's a couple of very famous footballers, probably with enough money to do this, who have opened their premium luxury hotels for NHS workers, because of course they're on the front line and then having to go home to families and the 1.5 million who are isolated, truly isolated. So really people are looking to give back to the NHS. Travelodge, which is a major brand here, I think 50 of their hotels are open for NHS workers. So there'll be casualties in that sector, but right now it feels like a positive give back story. I wouldn't want to look at the P&L, but
we can't right now. We just can't look at it. No, it's not a time.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, Hugh and I were talking about that just the other day, how empty it is, all the hotels. What are they going to do? How are they going to reinvent themselves? I think it's brilliant that the NHS, National Health Service, is offering their rooms to patients if it's needed, right? And God forbid if it is.
Sorry, to staff.
For the staff, but still, it's a positive piece of news that people will not forget, hopefully. They'll realize that they came up to the plate. Yeah, and you're finding that as well, Jeff.
Yes, I think, I'm hearing a lot of that is happening. My wife's in healthcare, and I can tell you she's a respiratory therapist. She's working 12, 13 hours a day, and she teaches respiratory therapy, and those people are just, they deserve, and there has been tons of restaurant promotions for these people to try to help them out through, there's been a lot of like mid-casual dining who've been giving free meals away to these people, and there are hotels that are actually putting them up as well, right? They're literally trying to graduate people earlier to try to get them into the hospital so they can help out with the epidemic right now. So there are tons of positive things happening in regards to that, and I think talking to my wife about SARS, because we went through the SARS thing, we do have an awful lot of protocols in place where it is much more, we're a lot more buttoned down in the sense of what we have done this time, and they have really rallied in Canada with the Canadian medical system to try to prevent this as best they can.
What do you think will happen to the operators when it all reopens? This is going to be very interesting. When everything's over with, opening up those doors again, it's not going to be like that. I may be wrong.
Michelle, you have some data on that.
I do have some stats. So forgive me for reading my notes, but so there's a site called Propel. It's a daily newsletter site, very good. And they quote figures from CGA. Again, they're great for data. And there's 61% of Brits expect to eat out with the same level of frequency post the situation. So, 61%,
Wow.
7% are hoping to eat out more. I think that's probably me. I can't cook. I can cook, but I just don't want to anymore. I'm really done with cooking right now. And, even those who've been furloughed, who have maybe lost their jobs, 54% of those are looking to still eat out with the same frequency. If this had happened, I don't know, 20 years ago,
oh, sure.
Eating out is just part of our culture. It's what we do these days. And obviously with social media and all the positive messaging you can receive through that, we are a nation that eats out. And actually we also pretty much don't like being told what to do. So I think there'll be a surge. I think there'll be a surge as we reopen. And it will be survival of the fittest. And I think the group operators will take an opportunity to perhaps lose that 20% of their estate that isn't delivering. So they'll probably offload some of those and just, focus on the 80% that are profitable. So I think that will be the change.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of restaurants. You'll see a lot of culling with the chains, right? That they're going to be shutting down a lot of restaurants in the sense that those aren't profitable, so we're going to shut them down.
Yeah.
So you see a culling there. It's just my fear is how many independents are going to be left, and because that's where the fun is in food service, right? That's where the taste is. That's where like all that stuff. And I'm hoping that, I'm hoping the government and we all rally to try to save as many of these operators as we can, because that's so important for us, right? As a society, right? We certainly don't want to be eating out of the same food 3 times a week.
No, I think that's really important as well, that the independent operators in the UK. So, we're a nation of people that go to the pub, local pubs, and actually these big operators have come in and taken a lot of the spaces. But the local independent operators, it's worth saying that actually they've rallied to become community hubs. So they're now not just a pub; they're where you can pick up a bit of shopping, some dry goods, some fruit and veg, maybe a little bit of meat. They're doing home deliveries, but they're not taking advantage on that pricing. They're being sensible, and I'm hoping they're banking that long-term brand equity that we've talked about a couple of times here. Sure. That people say, I remember the Dog and Duck, which is a popular pub name in the UK. I remember the Dog and Duck. True story.
That's not British,
Red Lion, another one. I remember the Red Lion because they were there when I couldn't get to the supermarket or didn't want to go to the supermarket, or they dropped stuff to my family or my relatives, etc. So, they're doing some terrific stuff. And of course, again, the power of Facebook and those local communities are building that local tribe. And I feel more positive about pubs I don't think I've ever been to, just because I see that they're trying and making that effort. So I feel positive about that. I just hope, again, that delivers through.
I just hope it's enough to cover their overheads over the next, I think it's going to be, honestly, I think we're 4 to 6 months.
Yes.
I don't want to, I think we are. I think we're 4 to 6 months into this, and before we see any type of, and I think it's going to be a slow entry back. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be like, boom, the world's going to open up again. I think we're going to see a very slow, controlled, gradual open up to food service. I think, and the workplace everywhere. Right. So it's an interesting time. But I tell you what, I feel better now than I did, let's say, 2 weeks ago. And I feel that there's just more, there is just much more rallying, and there's just much more people are becoming more engaged. There's less doom and gloom. Just let me put it to you that way.
Good.
I mean, does that surprise both of you? That people are, they're actually working well under under the circumstances. Would you agree? I find that people are not complaining. I mean, look at France; they're in a lockdown. There is a nation that protests about everything, and right now they're not saying a word, and they're only allowed to go out for 1 hour of a day. So I mean,
I think it makes you grateful for what you have, and
exactly.
And you suddenly put, I'm always so busy. I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there. I'm in London 3 times a week. I'm so important. I'm so busy. Well, actually, no, I'm not. No one is.
I think a lot of people.
I know, right? Who knew? But actually, your wife is, Jeff. But she's important, and that's the thing. Our perspectives are changing, and we're becoming appreciative. For when you find that amazing jar of pesto or something, that was in the back of the cupboard that you've had for a year and you forgot about, because we haven't got time to be too self-important and too busy. It's about coming back to, I was potting plants with my son last night. I never do stuff like that because there's too much other stuff going on. Life has slowed down, and it kind of reminds me almost of being a child when we didn't have social media and we didn't have all these distractions. You just took things one day at a time and got on with it, and perhaps that's what we're doing.
And I think the influencers won't be influential anymore. Maybe that will change. Who knows?
I think there's going to be a boomerang effect in the sense that we are, to your point, Michelle, we're going to appreciate life for what it is as we move forward. And we're going to take it one day at a time. And we're going to there's not going to be, I think, the pressure to succeed monetarily, I think is going to go away because it's not going to be there. We're going to go into a recession. I think we're going to just appreciate life on life's terms. And that might be dining out once a week or twice a week or something along those lines, but it's going to be a definitely changed world. And I think hopefully for the better, all that social media pressure and all the other things that the millennials that have to go through. I mean, I don't think that's healthy. And I think this could be bringing us back to a much simpler way of life. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right. It's also, it's interesting that suddenly everybody can work from home and everybody can, find methods of communication. And some of us do that already. But again, it's that reducing that urgency and that need to be seen as busy. So I think that's a positive, Ian.
I was speaking to a chap in Brighton actually a couple of days ago, Andrew Crompton, Michelle, and he's saying, you know what, I don't have to go on a train. I don't have to get onto the tube. I can just be happy at home and go on video conferencing. And he said, this has changed me. So I thought that was interesting, anyways. Look, any final words before we leave today? This has been very enjoyable. I certainly would love to do this more often with the three of us and with you. So we'll have some positive news, some really positive news, talk about trends and and any other news sort of topics for the day when it comes to our industry.
It'll be interesting to see when this is over what trends are. I mean, we can all have a crystal ball, but the trends are gonna it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens when it does come to no more COVID, let me put it to you that way, and then see what trends do happen. It's going to be a change world.
Lots of alcoholism at home.
I think Jeff made a point earlier about healthier eating. I think that will be. I think there'll be that period of indulgence. I think people are desperate to go out and eat a good steak or whatever it is that they're not good at cooking at home or can't source for at home. I think that will change. I think one of the really important thing that I'd like to cover that hasn't come up is in the UK, the food service distributors who've seen their traditional market disappear have mobilized into online ordering and home deliveries. So, there's two sides to the food industry. You've got your retail sector, and I've got some stats here because I like stats. The retail sector, in their peak week, sales were up 46%. 46% in their peak week. And on the flip side, you've got food service, whose sales were, Jeff mentioned earlier, could be 80, 90, 95% down. So you've got these two industries, and I'd say about the food service, which is my background, I just applaud them for the speed they've moved. I work with the UK's leading meat supplier for the catering trade, and we've turned them into a home delivery service. We got an online shop up and running, and their teams are running pop-up shops. Again, it's this rallying call of, we've got stock, we've got to do something with it. How can we make that happen quickly? So, I wonder how many of these food service operators will retain their direct-to-consumer service, or whether we'll go back to still a traditional retail and food service marketplace. Be interesting to see. But the food service distributors, that nearly 11 billion a year, they've had to move hellish quickly to either prop up or add value to the retailers. So good luck to them.
And the broadliners are trying to do that here with the restaurants and turn them into, local pop-up shops. Like they could be the local produce guys, they could be the local meat guys. And I just don't see a lot of operators embracing it at this stage of the game, right? And I'd love to see more, because you know what? I'd much rather give those people the dollars than the retailers, right? As long as it's at a fair price. So I feel like I was helping out, right? So it's just it'll be an interesting time, to your point, Michelle, in the sense that these operators might turn into like your local produce person and your meat shop and your take-home meal, right? All that other stuff. So it'll be great to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're going to have you back on in a week or so, Jeff. So we'll have a little more focused chat with you, and Michelle, as long as we've got your contact info, maybe we can check in every once in a while, find out what's going on in the.
Please do.
But in the meantime, I just want to, since we got you here, because you mentioned before we came on that your company is available to help maybe Canadian food distributors get a foothold in the UK. So I want to make sure you let them know how they get in touch with you.
Sure, thank you. So it's something Ian and I and Jeff have spoken about, is that actually for Canadian or North American companies looking to come into the UK, actually I'm here, I'm feet on the streets, in amongst the food industry. I'm very active on LinkedIn, sharing market trends and industry trends. My service is as an outsourced marketing consultant specialised in the food sector, means that if people want some real impact feedback from what's happening in the UK pre-COVID-19, post-COVID-19, then my agency, Umami, we'd be really pleased to help you understand the real feeling of what's happening in the UK, rather than just seeing it online, because you can read everything you want online, but sometimes you just need to know what's happening in the real world. So that's how we can support businesses over the other side of the pond.
And we're certainly looking forward to, obviously, in the very, very near future, when things get back to normal, to be able to start spearheading some American products over to you and taking it to the next levels. So I want to thank everybody today. This has been great. And we will certainly be doing this again, and hopefully more often. So thanks a lot. And
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity to everyone. I really appreciate it. It was great.
Great to link up with you.
Okay, thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.